This episode is brought to you by the Toyota Grand Highlander. Life's journey brings constant change filled with exciting surprises and grand challenges. And with its spaciousness, power, and style, the Toyota Grand Highlander is more than a vehicle. It's your partner in embracing all life throws at you. From the spacious adult-sized third row to seating for up to 8 passengers, the Toyota Grand Highlander is up for every grand challenge. Learn more at toyota.com/Grand Highlander. Toyota, let's go places.
Brew Strong is brought to you by Blickman Engineering, home of the Riptide. Visit them online at blickmanengineering.com.
Brewers, it's time for the beer radio you've been looking for. This is the show that dispels myths, tackles the toughest topics, and makes no apologies for geeking out on beer. Hosted by two guys that drink before they think, Jamil Zainasheff and John Palmer. This is Brew Strong.
Catch out, homebrew community.
What's up, my homie brewers?
This is TC.
This is Big Mike, and you're listening to Brew Strong.
That's right, Travis and Mike here while Jamil's away. Today we have special guest Robert Bell with Hogshead Brewing or Brewery. Brewery in Denver. They make outstanding cask ales. We talked about that in the last show, how you can adapt his techniques to make hopefully also outstanding cask ales. And we have our great friend Neil Spake on as well. He's not near as shy as he looks on video. You know, if you're live and you're seeing him on video, if you're watching this on YouTube in 4 to 6 weeks or so, you can see us. Elsewise, it'll be on the podcast coming up. YouTube, yes. Like the video will be on YouTube as the podcast.
On the YouTube.
Mike. Yeah. I want to point out that Facebook has rolled out recently, and it'll probably rolled out. Well, it will be rolled out because I think it's effective almost immediately. Videos are taken off of Facebook after 30 days. So this one's going to ride on Facebook for 30 days before it's pulled down. But JP will be putting them on YouTube should they survive our shenanigans. All right.
Maybe. And I would say that it's Brewing Network on YouTube, correct?
Yes.
TC?
It's the Brewing Network channel.
We don't have until we go global, we're not going to be our own Brew Strong thing. We're still a part of the Brewing Network.
That's correct.
So even then, we'll still be a part of the Brewing Network.
Absolutely. And you get to see all the shows that the Brewing Network has, not just Brew Strong when you go there. And you know who else is great with podcasts? We had them on a few months back. Our good friends at Blickman Engineering.
Oh, yeah.
Blickman and Anvil are our sponsors since forever on this show. I think since day one. They want us to remind you it's tax refund season, and what better time to upgrade your brewing setup? Hopefully, you get a nice big fat check, and now you know where to spend it. Blickman Engineering has everything you need, from quality homebrew systems to professional grade equipment to make your brew day easier. Plus, a full lineup of accessories. And the best part, their expert team is with you every step of the way, ensuring you get the right gear for your brewing goals. Mike is showing his Blickman beer gun. It is an outstanding
I showed you
product.
My gun.
Yeah,
it's my love gun. My love beer gun.
Yeah. That's your rifle or your gun, Mike?
This is my rifle. This is my gun. One is for canning beer. One is for fun.
There you go. Yes. And honestly, the beer gun it's got to be one of the least appreciated accessories that you can own.
Oh,
I mean,
man.
we get them. We try to bottle a couple times, and some of us get frustrated, and some of us catch on. And I mean, I can't compete without it. I don't have another way to fill bottles that's not going to be just like horrible beer. Mm-hmm. I'm also a fan of the Anvil equipment. Their foundry is that's my kettle. I went to electric, and I can't believe how less pain in the ass it is compared to propane and trying to regulate your temperatures and stuff. You know, it's just excellent equipment.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the Anvil Crucible. Is it the Crucible? Is their conical fermenter?
Yes.
Yeah, and that I have a 14-gallon version of that, and I have won awards making beer out of that thing. It is fantastic. English ales. I used to make a little bit of ESB in those. Kind of nice. I don't have to dry hop. I just got all the cool, accessories and cooling and control and all that stuff that I need. So, Blickman, innovate your brew day.
There you go. I wish they would adopt that. Don't settle for less. Go to blickmanengineering.com and get everything you need for your brew day. All right. Today's show is a live Q&A or mail-in Q&A. We have both. I will do my best to give priority always to anyone who is actually live on Facebook. That is the rule. And past that, we have a mandate to answer every question ever sent in. Whew. Working on it, boiling it down. We're going to knock some out tonight. New questions come up first every time, and Facebook comes up right along with them. So we're going to get these done. Let's see. Mike, did you want to talk about a certain story about a brewery before we get into our first question?
No.
Okay.
Wait, I need a little refreshing. What?
Was it Alibi you said did the open top fermenting?
Oh, yeah. The Alibi fermenters up in Incline Village in Tahoe. They ferment and then they do the first couple days in an open fermenter, and then they actually spooned after that. And I have a good buddy of mine, shout out Martin. He does the same thing at his home brewery, and the beer is fantastic. And I really encourage people to try that, because as our good buddy, the Pope, Jamil, will talk your ear off about open fermentation, driving yeast character. It's a good time.
So what's interesting, and I've seen breweries in England that have this totally open fermenting, and you were telling me even that at home he does buckets with practically open tops, correct?
Yeah, so he's using the brew buckets, and he puts just a piece of sheet metal over the top of them to keep them from being contaminated, but he's trying to drive that yeast character with as little CO2 blanket as possible, let them kind of be lively and my whole thing is I like to think of what Jamil was talking to me about this one time, and he was saying like it's like the opposite of pressure fermentation, where the theory with pressure fermentation is you get cleaner beers, you get less ester expression, you get less yeast character, and so by going the other way, where you're actually evacuating the CO2 as it's produced and reducing the dissolved CO2 in the beer, by doing that, you're actually pushing more yeast character and expression, and it's really exciting to try out. And I've really tasted the results. I'm really a big fan of that. If you're going for a very character driven by the yeast beer, it's a good thing to try. That's all I'll say about it.
Yeah. So. What I love about that, and I wish we had a Q&A, I could say, well, Tom wrote in about this. What I love about that is the fact that we have Robert on, and Robert's making extremely flavorful beers, and in a very traditional British manner. The result is extremely British. And Neil, you've been in English breweries like I've been in English breweries, and they're a mixed bag. They're doing it both ways. I think the other way people have attacked that is with yeast selection, just as we do with non-English style beers. Is some English yeasts are going to produce more esters, and I think even Fuller's is full on conical these days, aren't they, Neil?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah, so it's another trick, and it will definitely give you some good results if you do it well. But it's not. I would say it's not as necessary as we once thought it was, as long as you're selecting the proper yeast. But you should play with it, because it's very interesting.
I'll play with it. Wait, what are we playing with?
Not the love gun.
Whoa.
All right. So Jeff writes in, what about a show on brew sculptures? I'd be interested to hear opinions on single tier, tippy dump, gravity fed, brew easy, etc. What would I be looking for when making a choice? What should I be looking for between brands to buy quality sculpture? Any thoughts Jamil and John might have on the subject? Going to disappoint you there, because they're not on the show today. I looked at the show library before sending this. If I missed this idea, if I missed where this idea was on previously, could you direct me? So Jeff, I'll give you a real quick on why I chose this as a Q&A and why I don't envision a show on it. For me, Your equipment is specific to how you want to brew. A tiered system versus a flat system versus a tippy dump. Well, tippy dump means you want to brew on a very expensive system. Personally, I'm not a fan of tiered system. I know my tier system is tiered to a degree, but it looks extremely stable. I get nervous with anything that's hot enough to melt my face off above my face. So there's a lot of great equipment out there, and starting with Blickman, our longtime sponsor. There's other equipment out there as well. You got to figure out your technique, and then figure out what bells and whistles you need, and look at your budget. It's my recommendation on that. And so I kind of stole an entire answer on that without answering the question. But if you guys had any comments on what systems you feel work for you, again, I had a chance to prepare, and I'm blindsiding you all with this question.
Well, to promote your sponsor, everything I own is Blickman, and I absolutely love it. I would like to make the move like you have done to electric.
Mhm.
So far, it's been cost prohibitive, not because but because of getting the outlet installed.
Yeah.
Because Teslas are so popular in Austin. But the
You're trying to
beauty
hate.
is,
Yeah.
I have the Blickman tower, right? And right now I have all the gas burners. It's all driven by propane, and I have the controller, the old style controller. But I'm in a perfect position where I can modify my kettles. I can adjust my tower wherever I need it to go to electric, and I mean it's awesome. And so I can't say enough good things about Blickman. Every pot I own is Blickman.
And you like the ability to tier your system to a degree as
I do
necessary.
to a degree, yeah. But I'm kind of like you. I got a little fearsome. I was lifting. I'm getting too old too to lift pots, so I pretty much pump everything.
Yeah.
Like my hot liquor tank is barely above my mash, and the mash is only high enough above the boil kettle to gravity feed it in. And everything else I just pump. Whirlpool I pump. So
yeah,
that brew sculpture from Blickman has just been outstanding.
So Robert, I imagine you have pumps at your brewery.
Yeah, and actually, I was thinking back to my days of brewing on like 10 gallon systems. I mean, for years I was just gravity, I mean, everything I had was just gravity fed. For a period of time before a brewery that I worked for opened, they had like a 1-barrel system that was it was a 3-vessel 1-barrel system, kind of like a Ruby Street, if you guys are familiar with like a Ruby Street system. It had 2 pumps, hot liquor tank, mash tun, kettle, plate chiller. I have to tell you, like, I couldn't imagine. When I was looking at expanding on a homebrew system, I was looking at the vertical, like, tiered structure for gravity. But I, like you, I was afraid of the idea of having hot liquids that high above my head.
Right.
I still am. But so when I had 3 vessels that were all horizontal, I thought that with 2 pumps that was probably the easiest way I had to work from a homebrew standpoint, I would say. But in my brew house, I use essentially 2 pumps. One is a hot liquor pump. I have a hot liquor pump that drives to the mash tun, and my mash tun goes to a Grant, which goes to my kettle, which then goes to my heat exchanger that goes to my fermenters. It's a very basic setup.
Yeah. We should have talked about a Grant in the last show. That's a gravity feeding off your mash. That's probably something very specific. I used to use a Grant.
Wet well for your pump.
Yeah. I used to use a Grant when I was on a 10-gallon system.
Yeah.
it's a wonderful thing.
Yeah.
So Mike, you've got balls of steel, and you don't mind having 180-degree water above your head.
Well, you got to think. So I daylight as a wastewater process engineer, and I've got shit water 50 feet above my head at any given time.
That sounds way worse.
Yeah. I mean, hot or gross. What do you want?
Right.
So
it sounds pretty shitty.
And
Mike.
then this guy, and you got to also remember, I'm 6'6", so when I'm standing over here, I can actually peek into this liquor tank behind me. But I honestly think for the home brewer, the big driver should always be budget, and then the second driver should be the features that you're looking for your beer, right? I think so much of what people do is they want to look cool, or not everybody, but I think so much of what kind of could be a thing that could drive people to spend way too much money, as I have on cars and other adventures when I was young, is that looking cool and having the coolest piece of equipment. Is like, I ended up home making my system, and these are modern tanks, right? Like I do a rims for the heating of the mash tun, so that has a pump. I gravity sparge, I gravity strike. So I was also thinking in terms of control of pressure for sparging. I didn't really want to have to deal with all that, so it's kind of nice. I have my Blickman auto sparge. That's good. And I honestly think kind of where you're at, TC, is like for most homebrewers, if you're doing less than a half barrel, a single vessel, really nice setup, you could do anything I can do and do it almost, as good or maybe even better than I can. I mean, I really think for me is like, I like the 3 vessel just because I'm a fan of professional brewing and like that classic, fly sparge to the kettle, and then, all that stuff. Like, I don't know, maybe I'm old school. I went to school with Danforth, so he's teaching us all about steels, mashes, and mash tons, and Lauda tanks, Lauda tons, and all these things. So I don't know. I guess I'm a little romantic about the multiple vessels. So, but for most homebrewers, I think budget's number one, because we are hobbyists at the end of the day, and then number 2 is the features that you need to accomplish the beers you want to make. And I know that there's different levels of need for different beers, and so you got to really consider those things. And the big ones are mash efficiency, cooling for the wort after boil, and things like that, and whirlpooling and whatnot. So that's where I'm at with it. I'm a big fan of all the systems. I don't really have anything I wouldn't recommend, but in terms of your sculpture, as he was asking about, I mean, that's where I'm at, is like, just think about what you want to do and how much you want to pay, because it can go big quick.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So
yeah. I mean, I think we're mostly saying it's what fits you, it's what you want, and it's what fits your budget. So I mean, there's a lot of great systems out there. And I've brewed on a good handful of them, and you're going to land on what you land on. I would say get with your buddies more so than listen to us about what's great. Get with your buddies, brew on their system, see what they do, see what kind of work is involved, and figure out what kind of system you want. And then give me a phone call, and I'll tell you which system Blickman sells is the best.
I would also say too, just a little caveat: go to your local homebrew shop and try to just hang out and talk to people who've done it. Talk to the guy who's behind the gal who's behind the desk, and those people usually have a lot of experience. And what you would specifically, down to the type of beer you want to make, they might be able to give you the right direction. I think local homebrew shops are getting kind of hit hard lately, and go there. Go to your local homebrew shop. Otherwise, you won't have one.
No, that's
a great point. Yeah. Yep. All right, so we're going to take our first break here, and we'll be right back with some more questions. And we'll also check the chat, see if we have any questions coming on the chat. All right, right back.
Support comes from ServiceNow. We're for people doing the creative work they actually want to do. That's why this ad was written and read by a real person and not AI. You know what people don't want to do? Boring, busy work. Now with AI agents built into the ServiceNow platform, you can automate millions of repetitive tasks in every corner of your business, IT, HR, and more, so your people can focus on the work that they want to do. That's putting AI agents to work for people. It's your turn. Visit servicenow.com.
Are you looking for a simple brewing system that's great for all grain brewing, but everything on the market seems to be full of compromises? Blickman Engineering has the answer. The Blickman Brew Easy All Grain Brewing System. The Brew Easy is a complete system with easy upgrades and a beautiful compact design, perfect for any size brewing location. At its core, the Brew Easy is built on two gorgeous Blickman Boilermaker brew kettles, a high-temperature March pump, and either a top-tier gas burner or the new Boil Coil electric heater. The Brew Easy adapter lid allows the pots to stack on top of each other, forming an efficient, strong, and compact brewing setup that comes in 5, 10, and 20-gallon batch sizes. Upgrade your Brew Easy system with full automated control by adding a Blickman Tower of Power temp controller, and make moving around easy with the Blickman Kettle Cart. The Brew Easy is modular. If you already own a Boilermaker kettle, you can build your Brew Easy by purchasing just the modules you need. The new Brew Easy all-grain brewing system. See it today at blickmanengineering.com and brew with Blickman quality on your new Brew Easy.
Back to the beer guys that make other beer guys look like wine guys. Brew Strong.
All right, we're back doing a Q&A session here.
And dance.
And dance. We dance in the breaks, right? TC Big Mike here hosting. We have our great friend Neil Spake and Robert Bell from Hogshead Brewing here doing a Q&A show. All right, so next question I have here, Kent asks, what off flavors have you found can sometimes be mistakenly identified in competition beers? For example, BJCP states that kettle caramelization is often mistaken for diacetyl. Are there any other such false positives you have noticed in competing and judging? If so, what are they? He used a little more color here. And this tale is great for having Neil and Robert on as our guests right now for various reasons. I've got an English bitter that just finished primary fermentation and has a slight buttery but pleasant aroma. I pitched plenty of healthy yeast, and the beer has been at final gravity for a few days now, 10-13. So I figured diacetyl ought to be cleaned up, especially because when I take a sample, there is still yeast suspended. The more I smell it, I wonder if really I'm mistaking the oily English noble type hop aroma. We'll get to that one also separately, for diacetyl. I did 1 ounces of pellets at Flame Out 5-gallon batch, half EKG, East Kent Goldings, half Steering Goldings. The yeast, West Yorkshire. My first time using that yeast, being English descent, perhaps it is more prone to diacetyl, and I really am smelling that. Keep up the quality programming. So, gents, if you don't mind, let's maybe tackle the diacetyl first, then we can come back to some other off flavors if we can come up with a brief list of that.
Yeah, I can say definitively that English yeast strains are prone to diacetyl. I mean, English beers in general are prone to them. In our brewery, we put every beer through a diacetyl rest where we let it free ride up to 70 degrees, let it sit there for 3 days before we drop temp and crash the beer, which will drop the yeast out of suspension and clear the beer. I know from a home brew standpoint, that might be a little more difficult to achieve a diacetyl rest. That being said, it is acceptable to have a certain level of diacetyl in an English style beer. It may not win awards a lot of times, but it's absolutely acceptable stylistically. An overabundance of diacetyl, of course, is going to be off-putting and not good. But I wouldn't stress too hard unless you're having extreme issues with diacetyl. But yeah, a diacetyl rest is always helpful. Taking a sample, heating it up in an enclosed bottle, shake it up, smell it. If it smells like butter, you know you got diacetyl.
That's outstanding.
A lot of times you can get it to, finish out if you let it ferment for a period of time, but you know, you may end up with a certain amount of it. But that's from my experience as an English beer brewer, that's what I've run into.
I'm going to give you a list of questions, and I'm just going to go ahead and take off the rest of the night. Now, I have some more at the end, but you covered some great points. Neil, you want to throw anything in as an outstanding? You're a national beer judge.
I'll throw it in from the beer judge thing. I'm a nationally ranked BJCP beer judge. I've given beer judging tests. I've taken them. I proctored an exam in San Antonio last weekend, as a matter of fact. So Robert is totally right. If you are concerned about entering this beer and you're worried about diacetyl being in it, any knowledgeable judge will know that certain levels of diacetyl are acceptable, and they should not ding you in a competition for it, unless it's overbearing, right? If the aroma is that strong, movie popcorn smell,
Mouthfeel.
you're going to get a bit dinged for that, because that, even the best English beers, it's not that prominent. The other thing I would caution is taste the thing. If there's slickness to it, that's one of the things somebody's going to pick up the quickest as a judge. Yep. More the slick than the butter flavor. But if that is a low level and it just has like a slight butterscotchy note to it or something, I mean, I wouldn't be a bit afraid to enter it if you know the competition you're going into has qualified judges, because they should be knowledgeable enough to know. That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, that's outstanding. Also, we're hitting 1,000. Don't worry, when it comes to me, I'm gonna screw it up for you guys. Mike, you've been entering competitions. Did you enter your British beers back in the day?
Yeah, no, I actually won a best bidder competition. It was a club competition, but no, I will just say that the big one for me, because he was talking about misconstruing off flavor for what's supposed to be there, and kind of where we're supposed to be. And I think to kind of just add to what these guys are saying is, when things are wrong, they're going to affect multiple facets of the beer. So like, I think that in a beautiful British beer, diacetyl will be a plus. It'll be something that you enjoy. It'll be something that you really like. It adds to the flavor of the beer. And I always think when diacetyl goes really bad, it's like that slickness, that buttery, oily. It just ruins your perception of what a beer should be. And then I would think another big one that people kind of screw around with and they don't really, it's broken. It's like, no, it's just beautiful, is sulfur. And I think, especially with lagers,
agreed,
sulfur off flavors can sometimes be, when they get to be cabbage and like vegetal, and like you're tasting this kind of eggy or something, that's when it's broken. But some of these more subdued, kind of sulfury, they kind of make the beer a little bit more interesting when they add to the flavor. I would always say, if you're drinking the beer and you catch that flavor, does it make you feel good about it? Yeah. Like, does it make you feel like, God, what was that? And like, you kind of pull back. And I think us as kind of beer drinkers, we kind of can have that vitriol reaction or kind of over analysis to something that maybe could be wrong. And it's like, step back and go, do I kind of enjoy that? Do I kind of want that? Does it feel good? Like, does it ruin it? And I think the big things are mouthfeel. Does the beer have the mouthfeel it's supposed to have? The aroma, is the aroma now being affected by that flavor? Like, are you getting butterscotch on the nose really heavy on top of the oil, on top of the, it's like, okay, that beer has the fermentation has a serious issue. Same with the sulfur. Is like, am I getting a ton of sulfur on the nose? And then when I taste it, it's all cabbage and sulfur. It's like, okay, is it taking over and ruining my beer? I think delicate, especially in classic styles, those little tiny hints and kind of dressing of those flavors are pluses. So that's where I'm at.
So,
I think
you
that's
guys-
an excellent point, and I think
Yeah,
the sulfur is a really good example. I'm glad you brought that
Right.
up,
Yeah.
because there are some judges that think they know lagers inside and out,
Oh no. No.
and the least hint of sulfur, and they'll ding the crap out of
They
it.
just write it out.
Like, no, pal. There's
I'm
tons
going
of
to
good
unwind
stuff.
this just a little
Some of
bit
this
because
is-
you guys teed me up so much. You guys got me going.
PC
Can I
got
make
teed
one
up.
point here too? Just
Totally.
going back to cask
Yeah.
oxidation.
Yeah.
There you
Yeah.
go. There's
Mhm.
one that would get you dinged in every competition. Your beer's oxidized, right? But in cask beer, there's a certain level of oxidation that's not off-putting. It's complementary.
Complimentary.
It's
I
developing
think
the
that's what we're
character.
talking about.
Expression.
Like
Yeah.
sulfur in a lager is complementary to a certain level.
Mhm.
Diacetyl in an English beer is complementary to a certain level.
Certain level.
You know,
Excellent
So
point.
I'm gonna. You guys are giving me so much good stuff. This medium questions are turning
We're
into
on
a long
a roll,
question.
TC.
Yeah. So, Robert, you said it. The forced diacetyl test. I shied away from it for I don't know why, for how long, but you need to do it. You need to learn what a forced diacetyl is. It's as Robert said, you're going to heat up a sample. What you need to do is keep a non-heated sample and a heated sample and let them both get back to room temperature. I'm rushing it because there's so much about this question. And compared to, because you might not even know what diacetyl smells like. Do an off flavor course. You can't help how your beer is judged. Unfortunately, you can just get pissed off about it or not care about it. And yeah, some of this is part of the character of your beer. Is our friend Mufasa. I think Neil, you know Mufasa?
No, I don't.
Oh, he former pro, now retired and works at my local homebrew shop. The only one left in the Houston proper. So every American light lager is defined by its flaw. So they're like the number one selling beers on the planet, shamefully, and they're all defined by their flaw. You're gonna get some green apple in Bud Light. You're gonna get these off flavors in each one of these, and these are the top selling beers that exist. That's part of certain styles. It's just there. A little bit of diacetyl, some oxidation coming into your British ales. You're not sitting on your barley wine for a year because you want it to be fresh.
Mhm.
But so what are judges
We
going
want
to
that
make?
expression.
Right.
We want that expression.
What are judges going to make mistakes about? They're going to make a lot of mistakes, unfortunately. And as Mike was pointing out, they tend to look at what's wrong with the beer instead of what's right with the beer.
Or how maybe the little pieces that might be in a perfect world are wrong, actually push the beer to a better place. If that makes sense. All right.
Yeah.
I just
So,
want to finish that up.
I like that.
you're going to add it to your
Yeah.
poetry.
Yeah.
If you guys
Make
didn't
a
listen to the
haiku.
last show, go back and listen to the last show. Robert had the greatest description of brewing. It was poetry. It's gorgeous. All right. So Kent, that's part of you probably didn't like all that answer. I don't always talk well of judging. I am a beer judge and I am going for national. I'm not there yet. But you don't get the results you'd like all the time. It's unfortunate. Don't let it ruin your day. All right. Let's see. So Adam writes in and he says hello to all. Thank you, Adam. Hello right back at you. Thanks for the show and big thanks to Blickman for sponsoring. This is how Adam knows how to get his question read. Also, the other way to get your question read is just send it in. We're going to read them all.
Hey, but if you say Blickman,
Yeah.
maybe we do a search, maybe we don't. Who knows?
Adam brews on a Grainfather G40. His mash efficiency is 79%. Brewhouse efficiency is 73% per GF calculation. So Grainfather, I don't know if he's. I know a lot of people use Brewfather on the web, but he's saying Grainfather. I'm not familiar with Grainfather's software specifically. Adam's issue is he never seems to end up with 20 liters or 5 gallons of beer. Last batch, I started boiling for 1 hour with 6 gallons of work at 1072 at start of boil. I finished with 425 at 1082. I didn't do the math, but that math on points usually works well. Math on bricks, not so much. Probably a quart or so was left from Whirlpool. I added some sterile RO, 0.6 gallons, to get up to 4.75 gallons. I adjusted pH of this RO addition 5.5 for adding. That's not a bad idea. It's just a little bit of RO is not going to be the biggest effect on your pH, though. I'm at a loss how and when I can make water adjustments or start off with the right amount to hit the recipe numbers. What do I do to dial in my equipment profile to be more consistent with end results? Thanks in advance for help in this deep question. Okay, so I'll take a quick stab at it, and you gents can all put more on top of it. There's more to put on top of it. And Adam's still brewing because this is not an old question. And thanks for writing in, Adam. Start with more water next time. Just start with more until you end up with what you want. My understanding of the old school Grainfathers is they don't have necessarily not temperature control, because what you go to boil. They don't have percent control. I think they're all or nothing. So when you go to boil, it's on 100%. So your boil off is fixed. You can do a boil off test to figure out how much you're going to boil off. So you know how much you want to end up with. Has to be that plus the boil off. Just do it a couple more times, and I think you'll get it. If you guys need me to reread anything or want to say, "Oh, you're so wrong. It's not that easy. You got to do this, that, and the other." And Robert, I think when we come to you, you might. I don't know how you brew, but you might have a different perspective, because when I talk to pros, you guys look at it differently. Like, you might have a 10-barrel system, but I know some brewers stop sparging when they hit their gravity. If it's a little high, if it's a little low, doesn't matter. They hit their gravity. I
don't brew that way, but
there you go. Good. So, do you have any tips to help Adam hit his volumes?
Oh man, like
on your pro system, can you, like, when you go to boil, is it just on? Is it steam or direct fired?
It's direct fire. Direct fire on my kettle. I have a hot liquor tank. I dial up my temp on that the night before. Hit my mash temp. More than anything, I would say, like, I don't really worry that much about volume on mash. I mean, I'm talking about my system. It's my day to day. Like, everybody else's system may be different, their mileage, but what I do is I just mash in until I'm done. I've got an auger that's driving grain in at a specific rate. I have water coming in at a specific rate, and I just try to hit my mash temp the whole way through. I just watch my temp gauge. I don't get overly concerned with my liquor to grist ratio, because I usually end up pretty much in the same ballpark anyway. I usually shoot for about like 1.25 or so on my system, but that is what it is. As a home brewer, I batch sparged and did everything in my mash tun with a single infusion. But I mean, essentially, I'm doing the same thing on the pro system. Where I make up my volume is on the sparge, and when I'm watching my level, I try to get to a 10-barrel level while I'm, on the sparge. Whatever I get on my mash, I'll take that gravity reading and then I'll just sparge off until I get my volume and get that gravity reading. But what I want to make sure I don't do is run my sparge too thin and start pulling off tannins from the grain husks. So I usually, will never get to that point. I don't on my system. I never get to a point where I hit volume and I've gone below a level that I'm comfortable with. But that would be my cutoff point. If I was gonna say anything, I would just cut it off then. If you're looking for gravity, if you're dialing up your recipe, your efficiencies, to a certain degree, I would imagine that you're probably not going to be too far off on either end. And if you are, then I would adjust boil time for that, or water back at the end if you're too far over or whatever. That's what I do on my pro system. I just liquor back if I'm high, or I boil longer if I'm low.
Is he talking about fermenter full too, or is that?
Was I wrong? Am I talking different?
No, I like the volume. That's a good. No. That's kind of what I do. I was just thinking, but to finish it off, is that the next step? Is he also asking about that, or?
No, so ultimately, I think he got 4.75 gallons at the end, and he added RO to get 5.5. No, he added RO. He had to add water at the end, and he doesn't want to add water at the end. He'd rather add it up front.
But is he adding it to his fermenter or his kettle?
No, this is post-boil. Post-boil, he was low on volume.
So he's liquoring back.
He did on this occasion.
Into his kettle.
Yeah.
Okay.
But is he looking to hit a gravity, or is he looking to hit a volume?
You nailed it. I mean, because hitting both is the magic. Now, us as homers, we have a trick that you wouldn't use.
I think I was talking about that.
Yeah. No, you nailed it. It's 100%.
I just was curious. I wanted to follow up a little more.
If you brew a batch and you must hit your volume, well, you might be off on your gravity. So that means adjust your grain next time. If you must hit your volume, now as a home brewer, I can grab some DME. You're not going to throw pounds and pounds of DME. You're not going to waste money on something like that. You're just going to adjust your recipe. So you with a brand new recipe specifically, hitting both, you got to be pretty damn good. And so you can either work to adjust your volumes until you hit your volumes and then adjust your recipes, but target one or the other, because hitting both the first time, second time, third time, probably difficult.
Yeah. So I guess if I can cut in real quick, I would just say that for my brewing experience on my brewery, I've actually had a lot of problems getting the fermenter full volume that I wanted. And I was kind of kicking myself, like, what am I doing? I feel like I'm way over on my kettle. I'm way over. I think I should be getting, at flame out, I should have enough water in the kettle to get it, or wort in the kettle to get it over the fermenter. And as much as I can surmise, like, I think there's also, a 10% change in volume from the kettle to the if you're chilling in line. So I use a counterflow heat exchanger. So the 170 degree wort in my kettle is not going to be the same volume as the 70 degree wort in my
right.
So that's another factor. I don't know if he's doing that, and that's where maybe that could be a little wrinkle to this. And
he doesn't.
I think the other thing is like beer loss, and if you're not using a maximizer, so you're leaving a bunch in your you're leaving a bunch of extra wort in your kettle. If he is talking about fermenter full, but yeah, I can see exactly what we're talking about here. Is you boil until you get to where you're going to go, and if you trust your efficiency numbers, you kind of know what volume you need to get to the right gravity for your OG. And I would say target that.
So that
in terms of if you're looking for gravity. So
yeah, so that
that's
thermal
my 2
expansion. No, that was great, Mike. And it's great you brought up the thermal expansion is far less than you think by numbers, but far bigger than you think when you see it. It's 4% from like 60, 70 up to 212. It's only 4%. Sounds like nothing.
Yeah.
It's huge.
But-
And that 4% makes a big difference. Now, every measurement you have is going to lie to you at boiling because what the wort's doing as it's got all these nucleation points and stuff in there.
Picked up by bubbles. Yeah.
So that's going to lie to you. So your 170 to 60 or 70 is about 3%. And that's far greater than you think. He doesn't say that that's the issue, but that's a great thing to bring up, Mike.
The other thing I might throw in there too, if you're worried about gravities and OGs, this isn't even really related, but I've noticed that if you use a big wort starter, like you got a big yeast starter and you throw that bitch in there, I use a tilt so I can get I get the reading before and after.
Yeah.
And you can lose 5 points by adding a 3-liter starter to a 10-gallon fermenter. I mean,
but then you're almost 11 gallons.
I know. And it's like, whoa, like, so I would also say like, those are things that happen too on the homebrew scale, not so much pro, but more the homebrew is like, think about things like decanting your starters and
or
using
think
dry
about how
yeast.
I could work that cheat into my game plan, man.
There you go. Hang out with us homebrewers, man. We'll corrupt you.
Yeah. You got to make your 3-barrel starter.
All right. Neil, did we destroy this one or you got some corrections for us?
Yeah. Although I go back to the question again, did he, you got me confused when you were talking about.
I'll see if I can read
I'll
abbreviate it.
Is he brewing in a grain father?
Yes, the grain father is an all-in-one system. The G40 is a 10-ish gallon total volume. His mash efficiency is nice at 79%. I'd be fine with that. His brew house efficiency is 73. I'd be ecstatic. I leave beer behind, work behind at every step.
I
brew big and try to bring the core of it to my fermenter. So that doesn't matter. His issue is that he never ends up with 5 gallons of beer. Now he does say beer, so this is possibly post fermentation. But he starts off with 6 gallons, boiled down to 4.25 gallons, which that's a hell of a boil off, by the way.
That's a lot of boil off.
A lot of boil off.
Yeah, so that's maybe his boil is a bit long, but
heavy.
Yeah, but at 1082, so maybe 1082 is his target, so he boiled till he hit target. Fix that in the recipe. Use some more base grain next time. Do my trick. Add a little bit of DME. But if you're 425, you're never going to end up with 5 gallons. If you're 425 and you add RO to 475, as I think this says, you're still not going to end up with 5 gallons. Mm-hmm. And if you add it up to 5.5 and go in your fermenter with that, maybe then you're going to get 5 gallons, but maybe then you don't like your gravity, which goes back to adjust DME or adjust your recipe.
Yeah.
We've got lots of tricks.
I would also say kettle full should be like 7 or 8 gallons.
Yeah, I'm 7.13 on my 75-minute boils. I'm 7.25 on my 90-minute boils to get 6.5 post boil.
Yeah, I think a lot of what that is at the homebrew level. I think the geometry of our kettles is more conducive to boil off than like a pro kettle.
Totally.
And also like just thermal load, like the ability to get way more vigorous boil than a homebrew or than a pro. Like I've talked to a lot of pro brewers around here and they're like, oh yeah, I lose a couple gallons, maybe like even the guys that are doing 30 barrels are like, maybe like a half barrel. I'm like, wow.
I lose a half barrel.
I'm losing. I know. Like if this was what if you were losing what I'm losing, I mean, I kettle full at 16 for a 10-gallon batch.
Yeah.
So then I'm burning down to 14, 13 and a half. And so if you have that, you would be at 8 going down to 7, 6 and 7, 6 3/4. So to get down to 4 1/4, you're going to end up with a short cake, as they say. So just a thought there.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Neil, you good?
Yeah.
All right. We're going to take a short break and be right back with some more Q&A with our great friend Neil Spake and Robert Bell from Hogshead.
We off? 30 seconds of carefree bliss.
Oof, like wind in your hair carefree.
Oh, like using Clorox Disinfecting All-Purpose Cleaner in the home carefree.
Yes.
Like dog slobbing on the coffee table and cleaning it with Clorox Carefree.
He's on a roll now.
Spit toothpaste on the faucet.
You got it.
Peanut butter on the light switch.
Oh, spritz.
Spritz. Clorox, man. Clean feels good.
Okay, we're back. Use as directed.
Learning to brew has never been so disgusting. This is Brew Strong.
All right, we're back. This is a Q&A show. We're live here on Facebook. This video will be transferred to YouTube channel eventually. As same about the time it's put into a podcast. We have it's Big Mike and TC here with our guests today. We have Robert Bell from Hogshead, cask ale brewer extraordinaire. You should listen to the last show and learn all about cask ale and how you can do it at home. And Neil Spake, and Neil's our great friend, also a really interesting guy. And he loves English ales, and he helped bring that last show together. Thank you, Neil. And we'd love to have Neil on whenever Neil can visit. You too, Robert, but you probably have better things to do. You know, you're a pro and a bunch of amateurs over here, that kind of stuff. All right. Let's see. What's next in the chat?
I like Neil's shirt. Can I just say that?
Yes. Can you
I
talk
called
about
it
it?
out. It's a yes. Be at its best.
I agree.
Yep.
Real ale.
Real ale.
Yeah, they call it. It was. You said I asked if that was a camera shirt. Is that a camera?
It is a camera.
So that's campaign for real ale.
That's it. Yes.
And we are pro real ale on this podcast.
Absolutely
So
are.
go out and find some real ale.
That sounds like more like a Viking show. Yeah, you go.
Denver, Colorado.
That's
There
it.
you go.
Oh yeah. Go to Colorado and get some real ale.
Absolutely. If you haven't been to Hogshead Brewery, if you do go to Colorado, you need to, because
You have to.
Robert, you said there were some other places around the U.S. that do what you're doing, but it's few and far between. And I'm not familiar with any of the others, and I know what you guys do is outstanding. But again, last show tells you he gives us all his. He gives us what we think are all his secrets. I'm sure he's got more of them.
No, that was
all right. All right. So Matt writes in with 3 independent questions. Let's see if we can break this down. Matt, we may not answer all of your questions today. Hey guys, love the show. Keep it up, etc. I feel the genuineness there, whatever that word is. I love brewing as many styles as possible. And being that I live a fair distance from most of my friends, and I can't be drunk all the time, that's a lifestyle choice. Just most of the time.
That's a decision.
Yeah, exactly.
I
brew mainly 2.5 or 3 gallon batches. I also like using small batches to perfect the recipe before brewing a full batch that'll last me 2 or 3 months. I'd love to hear a show dedicated to small batch brewing and how it differs, if at all, from brewing full 5 gallon batches. Yeah, let me see. Where's the second 2 questions? Your finish on. Okay, this is more of the same. Mainly, I'd like to hear your opinions on how to scale up to 2.5 gallon batches, or even 5 or 10 gallon batches. Is it as simple as doubling hop grain weights and liquor volumes, or are there other factors that need to be taken into account? Also, what should I choose as far as my fermenters? Yeah, okay, now he's going deep. And so basically 2.5 gallons.
That's what she said.
Not around me, she didn't.
Oh!
All right. So basically, he's asking 2.5 gallon batch, 5 gallon batch, 10 gallon batch. Any concerns around scaling? It's just simple math to go from amongst these smaller ones. And Robert, I think you have a larger scale approach to this that I'm going to try to frame up for you after we try to tackle the small ones first. Neil, have you ever brewed only 2.5 gallons?
Your friend. There's no reason you can't just take a recipe and half the malt content to cut it in half. You have to do the hardcore math behind it. And that's where brewing software is really, really helpful. whether you use the free online stuff or whatever, they have all those calculations built in, but you should easily be able to schedule, adjust a recipe if okay, it's 90% Maris Otter, 10% Crystal 30 or 50. You should be able to scale that volume wise and IBU wise to any scale.
So I definitely agree with you on the homebrew scale. We'll come back to some other ones. But yeah, 100%.
I can't talk commercial. I don't know anything about
it.
Yeah.
Counterpoint, point on top of point. The big two numbers you have to know in scaling: brewhouse efficiency and boil off percentage per hour.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is more a factor of the hardware than it is of the actual recipe.
I think the big word is process. And the two ones that mean a lot to brewers are brewhouse efficiency, so in the mash efficiency, and then your boil off gallons per hour, or I like to do gallons per hour as a home brewer, barrels per hour big time. But those are where the scale really matters, because that's affecting your extract and then your final gravity. So I would say if all things were equal and your little brewery was the same as your bigger brewery, yeah, it's linear. But if you can determine both of those equivalencies, and then you can shoot for the same flavor, it gets a little more muddled, because extract is the function of sparging and bed depth and Vorloff temperature and sparge water acidification and blah blah blah. So you could end up with slightly different beers, but I think you could get within the realm of most people's palates by knowing that the processes and those two big ones, the mash efficiency and the boil off, you could get to the same gravity points, and you can get to the same alcohol, and you could basically make the same beer. But I would love the information from Mr. Hogshead.
So yeah, Robert, you can, if you have the experience of scaling up.
The most amazing thing was I was sitting back and listening to both of those answers, and I was like, you guys are all on it. That you need all of that information in order to replicate a recipe. You need to know your brew house efficiency. You need to know your boil off rate. You need to know the percentages of your grains. You need to know the IBUs you're hitting. All of that is those are all factors in replicating a beer, for sure. Absolutely. Developing recipes. I mean, that's scaling is all about, like, if you have, as Michael was saying, if you have your brew house efficiency and your evaporative rate, you know how to build a recipe based on your efficiency. And you'll know how much you're going to lose and how much you need to gain back. Mm-hmm. However, like going back to what Neil said, if you don't know, pounds don't mean anything in brewing. It's percentages that mean something. Like percentages, IBUs, efficiency, they're all numbers that will, to some degree, like vary from system to system to a certain degree, but percentages of grains and IBUs don't, but efficiency does. And so I agree with both of your answers, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
I just repeated it again.
There you go.
And if I could go a little more into the engineering realm, I like to touch on these every once in a while in the episode. Is so in any kind of piloting for some sort of chemical process, which would be a miniature version of what you would want to scale. Geometry, kind of static pressures, temperatures, all these things are trying to replicate the bigger scale. So I would say if you're building a smaller brewery or you're using a smaller brewery to try to scale recipes, really try to produce something that is got the same brewhouse efficiency, the same boil off, the same kind of things. You want to be able to depend on the fact that that recipe is going to build the same flavor when you go big. Because I think what gets lost a little bit too is like, I love what Jamil says about like, I will give you my recipe. I will tell you exactly what's in it. And there's no way you're going to be able to make it like I do because it's my brewery.
Yeah.
Like, you know,
and then he did, can you brew it, and brewed everybody's beer.
I know. Right. So he's just a master of, I don't even want to go there because he's the Pope. Right. But I'm just saying from an engineering, like from a chemical process engineering perspective that I have doing pilots at scale to develop design projects that we built into many multiples bigger. I mean, thousands of times bigger. It was about getting the right pressure, right temperature, right, and we were doing biological stuff. But I would say for a brewery, you want to do the same extract, same boil off, same things that you're getting out of your little brewery that you get out of your big brewery. And if you can do that, then you can directly scale it. Like I'm talking multiply it by the volumes and bam, you're good. But otherwise you might have to, it'll get you close, but you're going to probably, if you loved the pilot brew, if the big one has a different geometry, different style, different way of doing things, you're going to have to kind of pull some levers and tweak it. It'll get you close, but you're going to have to understand that it will be different. Process is huge. That's what I'm saying. It's process. Ingredients are one thing, process and tanks and volumes and temperatures and everything is
So the observation I have that I think is fully in line with what everyone's said so far. The observations I've had is going from 10-gallon batches to 5-gallon batches. The equipment was the factor, not the ingredients. So that wasn't a big deal. But going from 10 or 5, as I've done a couple pro-ams, and Robert, I don't know how many pallets you do for your big batches, but the issue I had is my mash efficiency is not what a modern system is as a pro brewer. I mean, my mash efficiency is pretty good now. My new system is like low 80s, but I go to a pro system and they're mid-high 80s. So it changes the extract balance. And you're going to have to fight those numbers to get your beer back, because if your percentage, if those numbers don't match, that's what's affecting it. It's not because I went from 10 gallons to 10 barrels. It's because I went from 83% or in my old system, 78% mash efficiency to 89% mash efficiency all of a sudden. And the extract's different. It's So 2.5, 5 gallons, 10 gallons, it's going to small tweaks in your equipment. When you brew excellent beer because you listen to the show all the time and you get your pro-ams, that's when you're going to have an excellent brewer like Robert say, well, this is my system and this is how we adjust for what your recipe looks like to make it right on my system.
Yeah, that's where it's important to listen to pros like Robert.
That's right. Great. So we actually all had almost the exact same experience. That's amazing. Unheard of. Yeah.
It's heard of.
It's heard of now.
I'm just kidding. I don't want to disagree too much. I love you guys.
All right. So, let's see a little bit more on his question, different, but related. What should I choose as far as fermenters go? Will my usual 5-gallon carboy suffice, or would I get any benefit from using 3-gallon fermenters geometry? How about temperature control, etc.? So he's concerned with the fact that if he had a 10-gallon fermenter, could he do 2.5s? Could he do 5s? I have zero experience on this. And Robert, I was wondering, it sounds like you have a 10-barrel brew house, but you have a 20-gallon fermenter, and sometimes you double batch into it.
We have a 20-barrel fermenter. Sometimes, most of the time, I will double batch into it. But if I am short on a beer that I only need 10 barrels of, I will brew 10 barrels into a 20-barrel fermenter. I don't have issues with it. I know other people that'll do half batches that, like, I mean, I really don't think that it would matter too much if he has a 5-gallon fermenter to do 2.5 gallons in, really. Yeah.
So I think he might have an advantage that you may or may not have. You have jacketed fermenters?
We do. Yeah.
Do you have cone jackets or just the wall jackets? Do you have like a cone jacket? Do you have cone?
Cone and jacket. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you didn't have a cone jacket, you doing a half batch could be a big problem with trying to control temperature. But you have a full, maybe it's 2 separate jackets on your 20, maybe it's more chambers than that. So he's going to put his in a cooler, and he won't have any hot and warm spots necessarily because the whole thing's in a cooler.
Right.
So him half batching is the same thing as you half batching. So yeah, just go ahead and do it.
He should be fine. Yeah.
Yeah.
Send it.
I think he's fine.
We're homebrewers. We can try it again.
Yeah, right. That's 2.5 gallons. Man.
I think with scaling, accept the fact that you're not going to, the beer is going to change. But maybe very slightly, maybe a lot. It depends on the process.
So I
agree with
combined
the process approach. That is true.
Yeah.
It's all about.
I think the big one, and I would say the big one is if you're trying to make the same, let's say we're trying to get the same malt flavor with a smaller beer, that's when things go crazy. And I know I'm going off on a tangent, but that's where like I want the same flavor of malt, but I want to make it from 7 to 4% alcohol.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really get people. And then I want to go from making that and then scaling it, and that can go. That's fun.
Changing alternate ABV, trying for this, like yeah. No, that's not his question, thankfully, because no.
I know, right? Those are hard. There's episodes in Brew Strong they talk about those. So
it's my life, man. Everything I make is like under 5%. No, it's 5 or under.
Yeah, the small beer, as they call it. I just think it's such a cool challenge. It's like something that you don't have. I think yeast expression is easy to get with high ABV because you've got a lot of sugar, you've got a lot of metabolic activity, and then I think you don't have the same constraints like with a small beer. And then you can use big hops, you can use big malts, you can do all these things. You get so much room by being a lot of alcohol. When you're making a small beer, like a 3.5%, 4% beer, you've got to really express yourself and your mastery of the flavors to keep the beer from being cloying, to keep the beer from being empty. It's like you got to right down the middle. You got to hit it, and I think that's where the true expression of a brewer is making small beer taste fantastic. So I am so excited the way you guys talk about these cask beers. Not to go back to last episode, you should check it out on our Brew Strong.
Absolutely.
But these things are interesting challenges for craft because you want to make something that doesn't taste like water, big beer, and you don't want to taste like sticky sweet syrup,
right?
Because it's so unfermented. I love it.
All right. We're gonna take our final.
Deviate.
No, outstanding. We're gonna take our final break and come back. One more we can fit in for our Q&A show. So we'll be right back in just a few minutes.
TaxAct knows small business owners can sometimes use a little help with their taxes. That's why TaxAct has Expert Assist, a team of live tax experts ready to answer any questions you may have. Think of them as your own personal sidekick. Not like one of those funny talking animal sidekicks, more like the super smart nerding out on tax code and business casual attire sidekick, but just as helpful and lovable. TaxAct. Let's get them over with.
This episode is brought to you by Pluto TV. Pluto TV has all the shows and movies you love streaming for free. That means laughter is free with gut-busting comedies like The Neighborhood, Key and Peele, and Ferris Bueller's Day Off. Mystery is free with countless cases to crack from Criminal Minds, Tracker, and Matlock. And thrills are free with heart-pumping hits like The Walking Dead and Defiance. Feel the free. Pluto TV. Stream now, pay never.
Back to the two guys that know how to turn beer into beer. This is Brew Strong.
And we're back. live on Facebook, delayed on YouTube on the Brewing Network's channel, and delayed on the podcasts, about the same amount. Answering your Q&A questions. We answer them in the chat. We answer them from email, and we are on a mandate to answer every single one of them. And I might have missed one or two in the chat. Let me scan this. Oh, Richard missed the last show. So, he does have a question then. So, all right. I'm glad we still have you on, Robert. My wife and I visited Hogshead when we attended the GABF. It was my fave stop since we had. Wait a second. This might just be congratulations. Did you pay for this?
No,
one,
there's a
Robert?
question.
Okay,
There's a
okay.
question.
I'm thinking you might have paid for this one. Okay. It was my fave stop since we had just recently went to London.
Did he type it himself?
He's really good. Question: as a home brewer, what are the major mistakes made when first attempting to brew a cask ale?
Oh,
interesting. Well, you're going to tell me
that's
there's
a
none because I
huge
make
world to
perfect
have
beer.
to convey. Wow.
Get a top two. Let's do top two.
Top two.
I tried to make a cask ale and it sucked. What was the top two reasons? If you can think
as
of
a home brewer trying for the first time.
Home brewing, remember, that's where it's really challenging too, because you don't have the volume.
Well, all right. So I guess we have to figure out what we're considering a cask beer. Are they trying to put beer in a cask, or are they trying to make a cask beer that they can bottle condition? I guess there's a lot of factors that I have to kind of wade through, I guess, with that.
If we're let's see if you've had this experience. Has someone come into the brewery one time and say, "Oh man, I tried to make a cask ale, but..." Have you had that experience? Does that happen? And maybe it's I tried to make a cask ale, but it blew up in my face.
What's that?
But it blew up in my face.
Up on my face, yeah.
That's what she said.
I'm gonna assume that they have a vessel that they're conditioning in. I mean, going back to our last podcast, really, cask beer only comes in the conditioning stages of beer. That's when it becomes a cask beer. So if we're talking about conditioning, I would assume either I mean, for most home brewers, me being a past home brewer, temperature control is probably the biggest obstacle that home brewers have to navigate in the process of brewing beer. The other thing is oxygen pickup. As a home brewer, the two things that I think kept me from making beer that I would say were exceptional was temperature control and just innate oxygen pickup through the process. I don't have to deal with any of that on the pro brewer level. Everything is a closed system. I control my fermentations. Fermentations are probably the most crucial aspect of beer. Like, boiling is pretty easy. Fermenting is meticulous, and it should be treated as such. That's how I feel. And I know that is an obstacle for homebrewers. There's not a lot of temperature control. But I think that is the difference between making a great beer and making a beer that's maybe not so great.
I hate to tell newer homebrewers how strongly I feel about temperature control, because it's an expensive step when you're first starting. And slightly digressing, I'm only talking about primary fermentation. You're talking about once it goes in your cask, once it goes in your vessel, you still have to maintain temperature. It's the same problem homebrewers have when they start off and they bottle conditioned beers, because they just take the bucket and they dump it in the bottle, and it's already got some sugar in there and a little bit of yeast left over, and they cap it and they stick it back in that 72-degree closet. And 3 weeks later, it's carbonated and tastes like ass because it's carbonated at 72 degrees in their closet. So, and you mentioned that. So hope gentleman goes back and listens to the first show, because you're aging your casks at cellar temp, 50-ish.
Right.
Which is not easy for your ale yeast, but it's your ale yeast, and you're dedicated to the process. It's going to have to happen. So you're re-fermenting ale yeast, very cold temperature, much colder than they've been for the last week or so, fermenting your beer, or how many days it takes you to get to that process. So it's not just continuing your 65 to 70 degree ale fermentation. You're chilling it and expecting that yeast to get the job done and make a clean finished beer again, because it already clean finished once. You got to clean finish it again.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And I mean, the conditioning period, I think, is one of the most overlooked periods of, and important periods of finishing beer. I really do. I think a lot of people rush beer.
Agree.
Yeah.
100%.
Couldn't agree more. Yep.
All right. Mic drop.
Yeah.
No, that was after the poetry. Man, that poetry was a mic drop. But you can have two in a given night. That's fine with me. All right. So I think we covered this question. And Mike, I appreciate the nudges telling me about the question that I missed all of the nudges. And Richard, thank you very much for your question.
Neil, what do you think about that? What are the things that you've experienced?
I'm going to take a completely different slant here. Totally left field. I'm going to assume that his question is more, I'm trying to brew a British style beer. AKA cask ale. So my only recommendations there would be what we talked about in the last show as well. If you're going to brew a British beer, I'll heart my good friend Jamil. Make sure you use British ingredients. We talked a lot about fermentation. I think fermentation is everything in a beer, regardless of the style. Not everything, but it's nowhere near gets the attention it needs. And British beer is no different. If it's a 3.8% bitter, you need a yeast, an English style yeast with some ester character, if you really want to produce a beer that tastes like what I would call cask beer. The Germans do Helles and that kind of stuff, like we talked about earlier. They do cask barrel fermented lagers that they throw up on the bar and they serve them. That's a little bit different, right?
But they even do alt, which I think is an ale style yeast, but it's still different.
But when you get to what I don't think of that as cask beer. When someone says cask beer, real ale, all these terms mean the same thing to me. And it goes back to British beer, Scottish beer, Irish beer, UK brewing tradition is where I see it. And to do that, you need that style of beer recipe, and you need to use as close as you can get ingredients to those style of beers. Everything else you guys said is spot on. The process is absolutely critical.
No offense to Breeze, no offense to RAR, but if you're making a British ale, use British malt, use British hops, use British yeast.
You just won't get the same. Jamil has mentioned this multiple times. Go read his book, Brewing Classic Styles. If you want to brew a British beer, you need to use those malts, not because they're so much more superior to a RAR or whatever. No, they're different in character.
Yeah,
they're grown in a different region of the world. They're processed differently, and that's what made those beers what they are today. So,
yeah, I love that process. That is awesome. I think this show is killing it right now. By the way, I just think our commentary on what it takes to make beautiful British beer is going to help people make beautiful British beer. And I think this has been amazing, guys. I really appreciate you for both the last two shows. And people need to listen, and I'm so stoked. So.
You're doing a great closeout. You want to mention our sponsors?
So I will mention Blickman Engineering. They are your go-to source for elegant engineering solutions for your brew day that make beer easier and simpler to make. And I'm a huge user of these products. and you should be too. Is there another sponsor?
But no, that's exactly. Thanks for joining, everybody. Really appreciate you tuning in for our Q&A. Thanks to our guest, Robert Bell from Hogshead Brewing, phenomenal cask ales, etc. Neil Spake, our great friend, Big Mike TC here. Let's see, upcoming shows. We are going to have Michael Tonsmeyer on from Sapwood on sour ales, and we're going to do a separate wild ale show as well. And we're going to keep throwing these Q&As in. We're going to answer your questions. We're following the mandate. We're going to keep brewing strong, right, Mike?
Yeah, brew strong.
Thanks, everybody.
Brew strong, everybody.